Observations, line signals, and high interference of course line channeling, position of triangulation, position of force line, calculation of streamlines. Recognition of time sequence comes in all applications of pi, quantum interference, quantum channeling, L calculation system. Today in track lines, the team will come into all set linking system of 108 and line centers its infinity cycle coming into the Colossus location of channeling. Now, the Colossus line channeling is all calculated and modified how we use set our interception locations are interfaced into our clouds. We have to understand modification, how it works through navigation line settings. Now, it's extremely complicated because general is in a high set line condition, high setting, mystical cortex vibrations. That's what we're going into today. So if you understand that center line interference, you understand the recalibration, the recalculations, the remodifying high interference, the reforming or line connection, the reanalyzing. It's all positioning you through track line communication setting. So when you're actually sleeping, you're going into mystical cortex vibration of a dream. That's a visionary set locations. Now, dream sets the lines of a vision. So in line communication and position location is positive or negative. If it's negative or positive, it's a dream line condition and setting. It's got to be positive negative. That's light signature pattern. Now that rotates in system locations. Now I got you guys to watch matrix location settings in Space Discoveries. Okay, episode communication of 5 lines talks about the position location of DNA of its matrix location, which is digital framing, which is digital film strips, which is digital line calculation setting to your projectors of your sun and your moon in set locations. You have to align how to its communication, how to use it through its film set locations. Right? Knowing exactly what it's doing through its infinity cycle line connection. Now, in the psychosis location is to understand the psychological where it stands in point view. Recognizing these things opens all position locations to its system. Now, understand the calculation modification. This puts you in a better communication to its line setting. Okay, so in that track line communication system, it opens all levels. Okay, formulations, high setting, and position. All right. So we're going to work with formula equation, line setting, location, number sequence, location, patterns, direction on time sequence. And so in that track communication, you really have to understand how to use it through colossal calculations, cloud line channels, operation stream locations. So we start with 1 lines, bracket locations of 1, in position of 0, in position of 8 locations. All right? Bracket communication line settings. Okay? 0 sets line calculation setting into Y lines into V line rotation positions, V lines position locations, and waiting signal in set locations. Now, waiting signal sets line position of barometer, line calculation setting, barometer and a set communication system. Right? It tracks line calculations. So line conditions of width and communications into band and set line condition size setting. Track line communication in position lines, interference and position. Okay? Coming in colossal line interference and line calculation system. Now this position locations is cloud line. Cloud line, equal line condition of Colossus, equal lines of 0. Line conditions at ground levels, in set location in position ozone, in set location setting. Directing signal line interference, we take the 1 line in 0 operation surface in set location system. Opens all calculation lines and ground lines in operation setting in set locations. Okay, down by equation. All right, setting in sequence patterns is all position how we use the formation locations in all line setting. So we recognize communications, center communications into mystical cortex vibration. Okay, and set connections. Now, you understand the donut. The donut line circles its location setting. Track lines is 0 line operation to magnetic highway information line stream. Directions of time sequence, send lines levels, it travels at set lines in high calculation setting into 2 positions of digital film strips in calculation stream. Now, calculation modification comes into its seed pod in position location of its eye receptor. See the eye receptor line stream? Directing signals and high interference is position location of placebo. Placebo sets graph line streamlines and high interference of 2 panels in position of all calculation streamlines. Calculation line interference, position line condition of 144, grid line center rotation surface and set location system in high setting. Directing signal line interference, looks like a waffle, right? Setting all calculations. So the ground lines is lines of 0, equal lines of 12. Setting calculations of 0 line in position the atmosphere location equal lines of 12 and set location system. Okay. Now we get into tube line setting, straight in position location levels, crossing signals, right? See that? Signal line interference sets communications. So we take the 144 into 244 track line conditions. 3 panels of operation. All right, see how it travels? Travels lines and high line interference and set location of clock lines in high system. Done by equation, right? 0 to 12 lines of the atmosphere. 0 to 12 line communication settings. Putting track communication settings back in division line rotations. So we come into 108. Equal line can subtract. Equal lines of communications in position of colossal. Colossal equal lines all position locations into collaboration. Collaboration calculation line in position locations. Operates the system in position of track line. Again, track line into teleportation, telewaving, telewaving into all levels of 3 set line condition system. Panels and line interference of 2 line setting locations into 1 and 2 position of measure in set location settings. Done by equation. All right, so it's going to get more complicated. So what I'm setting is setting up code line streamlines and 108 line rotations. So we take the teleportation line stream in lines of 6, okay, half pipe. Sets lines of travel communication lines. So you can learn how to travel communication to letter lines and its interference. Setting correlating line position of track line and mystical cortex location of vowels. Sets position of panels. Now this is audio immune line rotation interference into the microbiome. Calculation line interference travels as communication setting, direct signal. Directing signal line, cross line, streamline interference, and high set location as core and set location setting, direct signal, and set locations. Now, in that direct line setting, we have a wave cycle line setting in set location system in positions of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 set line conditions. All right. Now, the 5 line setting sets 5 line rotation, 5 calculation setting in position location on all levels, puts an 8 line track communication setting, 58 phenomenal line rotation surface. Done by equation. We're going to save that set location setting, read track line communication and positions. Now, inline communication line settings, we set 108, set line interference, 1 line setting, 0 operation into 8 track locations. All right. Now, center graph lines 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You're always working with 12 settings, right? You're never going to lose that calculations. But the clock lines of 1 and 0 in position of 8 is changing clock lines of colossal line communication. Now, this channels line streamlines the operation surface. We set lines of 24 in set line condition system, 24 lines of 13 in line condition of 14 in position of 15 in set location settings. This redirect line center line interference of 5 lines in set locations in position of 8 in track communications. So we take the 8 channel lines of circle, 8 channel lines of operation surface in set location system. This channels lines of 8 in positions of 8 in positions of 8 in positions of 8. Track communication lines, infinity line rotation in circle location settings. Done by equation. All right. Going to save that in position because we're going to come back to our calculations in position line setting. Now, understanding how to set a surface line setting and triangulation of positive position locations all levels. This all lines as signals. Now that rotation surface sets line of communication into the center position, right? Now in that center position comes into a positions all levels in a tesseract line setting in position track line communication to its program set locations. Done by equation. All right. We take that out line interference. That's done through equation. Now, rotation spin line sets the lines of 0 line rotation surface and position locations. Okay. Calculations of digital layers and set line conditions. All right. Now, the rotation spin cycle sets line communications in the higher positions. 0 operation center lines in correlation. Okay. Center communication line settings in position of white circles in set location system. Okay. Travel calculations, flux capacitor, and 3 line settings, rotation. The triangle line of rotation surface sets line communications and white graph line stream locations. Setting calculation line interference of center line communication of colossal channels. Operation signals in set location system. Okay, so we come into all calculation modifications. This changes channels lines operation stream. High calculation lines rotation surface in set location system. Right? Channel line stream lines in set location of 12 set location settings. Redirecting lines of 0 line rotation surface in set position of center operation. Okay. Now, in that line communication comes into a Hubble. Again, we come into line communications of balance. That rotation lines is atmosphere line change. Now, remember how we go from 0 to 12 with grounds and 0 to 12 location of atmospheres? The center operation line communication is coming into 1 and 8 infinity cycles. Line condition of 12 line signatures in position of panels. Operation to its stream location system. Done by equation. All right, so we're taking that on line positions. That's center line. Travel line setting. It's all set location. Redirecting signals and line connections of two panels, one lines of 0, 8, line centers of 8 positions, 8 position line connections, 8 line setting, 8 rotation surface, line condition of box, triangulation line interference, inside location setting, and direct signal. All right. So directing line centers of box line, high and center line interference is two reception line communications, all right? Center communications lines. Center lines of infinity cycle and center communication. Same infinity. Sets lines in center line communication in position. Operates as signals. New ground line operation. So you have infinity of ground of operation surface and sublocation system. Okay? So in that track line communication line center interference, we get a uniform line, sublocation of the top line. Centers its communications, or lulls, right? Scans lines, strips lines into its center positions. Operates a signal line in position of high setting. Okay, it's very powerful when we come into this locations. Channel stream interference comes into this position locations, high levels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 set location settings. Directing line centers the streamlines, graph lines, streamlines in 12 measures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 lines of graph lines of stream location system. Done by equation. All right. So we're going to keep that positions. We're going to track positions back in line settings. 24 clock line rotation. Now, zero line communication lines is where the sun comes in high force line settings. Now, set lines of high position location and levels. Blocks interference and position of panels and stream locations 3 set line conditions. Travel communication line in rotation sets an S line channel. Rotates a surface location of 6 lines in position of 4, 3 line setting in position, 2 lines of track in 1 line and 0 operation to surface, and a new ground operation setting and a new balance line position locations into a magnetic of a colossal line channel of a cloud interference in set line communication system and a high calculation line setting that stands in its position locations all levels of set location. Down by equation. All right. Taking that line center interference. All right. So there's a reason why I keep going back. I'm not going back and going forward. I'm just adding frames. Adding frames to perception location is this lacing line settings. So you got 108 line in the line rotation interference of 2 lacing line communication line position of box location system. Now that's pi lines, pi line interference, line communication positions to its pyramid, calculation of streamline and set location setting, in position of film strips, 12 line signature and positions of panels, operation stream location. Now, indirect signal, the pi comes into lines of level lines this line communication system in 2 panels. See the 2 panels? Rotates the level line interference. So we got 3 lines of level and 3 set locations, right? 3 sets line calculation setting into 0 gravity. So we got 0 lines of 3, 0 lines of 4, 0 lines of 5, 6, and line conditions of 7 and 7 track communications, right? Number sequence line condition high center interference. We got 0, 0, 0, 4 lines of high center interference, track communication of 3 sets. So that takes lines of 4 equals lines of 3, and line condition equals 7 locations, bodies of water set location setting, done by equation. All right. That's in center communication line stream. Now you got a 6-day window, rotations of box lines, calculation of position line centers, and 3 set location settings in direct signal. Now in direct signal, you have a 0 line in position location of graph lines, 12 lines high set location position of graph communication. Now, center communication, flux capacitor line set and streamlines. Center rotations and other plateau calculations above lines, rotations, calculation setting, and direct signal. Now, direct signal, we travel communication in a low ground line, center line interference. That's where we come in position locations into PX line setting, rotation surface locations of panels and rotation setting, calculation of stream. Studying direct signals and panel operation line centers at 2 positions of measure that correlates its position of travel communications. Setting calculations of 1, 2, and 3 in setting line communication system. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 line setting line interference. So we got 4 over pi, 3 in position, and 2 in track and security positions. So we take the 4 lines and set lines in position of 3 lines and set location of the 2 lines. 4 track its communication of 5 generational line settings, 5 over lines of 7, 7 position of 12. 12 in the center line interference, 12 calculation setting, and 12 line measure. Puts 36 valves in set location setting and protection location at ground lines in high operation. Down by equation. All right, we're going to save that positions because we've got to come back to that setting. Putting positions back in line setting and rotation surface in set location setting. Now, 108 line interference graphs this line stream, setting direct line signals in set location system. We take the 108 line in rotations, setting lines of 0, setting lines of 8 location setting, directing signals of 8, 8 position and track line communications. Balance lines operation surface in set location system. Mystical cortex line communication at center setting locations. Directing signals into atom line rotation surface and set location setting. Directing signal line interference, another ground line operation surface and set location, another ground interference, infinity cycles and set location system. Done by equation. All right, so we're going to save that because we're going to come back to that line. Back in set line communication setting in all line interference. Now, this is a yesterday line communications, reference and position of panels. Remember, we go in the alphabetical line connection keyboard line settings, setting track lines into information line settings. So we got information panels and then conditions of map sequence locations of pi. Maps equals pi. Now, the equalized set line conditions of balance lines is 5, 5. 5 set line conditions, bracket line condition size system. That's 3 channels operation stream locations. That way equation. So we get rid of that line panel, set position of track line. Operation surface and set lines and high calculation settings. I'll understand how to use the microbiome line center. Biron line connections all levels. Colossal channel line interference, a correlation of time synchronization, high interference, travel communication lines, a ground line operation, and magnetic highway formation lines as center communications into 1, 2, 3 panels in set line settings into circles of calculation. All right. Now, line setting high interference is electrical lines of wires and 3 set line conditions. Right. Setting correlation line interference and graph line stream locations. Right. Setting position location is center lines into a tesseract location of channel. That channel operates its line position location higher calculation streamline. This opens all signals and set location setting. Pulsars calculation lines and position locations opens all calculation setting and direct signal. That my equation. All right, so we don't need that anymore. That's traveling in position line had. High line setting, high interference, a fast track communication system. Box over triangle, triangle in the centers. Box over triangle, center line high interference. Box over triangle, 3 line center line interference in position of 1, in position of 2, in position of 3 set locations. Now the 2 line center sets on position of 2 line center line interference. We have a triangulation of 3 set location system. 3 line center line interference line conditionized system. 1 UFO line rotation surface. Sets lines of ground line scans. All set location settings. Done by equation. All right, so the scanning line and rotation interference is set up in the routers and routers. Setting calculation lines a 6 line rotation surface and set location system of the moon. Rotation line interference of the sun communication lines is rotation surface location setting. Directing signal lines of 6 line position locations of 8 infinity line rotation surface and set location system and set location settings. That way equation. All right. So in that line interference travels to communications. Now a rotation surface is really understanding how to set up a router channel. A router line to line rotation interference sets position location of the program. So you have the moon line rotation surface in the same direction location system and direction. Now the router line centers its relay. Relay centers its operation its unification settings. Opens all line setting high interference. Track communications and setting. Okay. So we come into a T-valve. T-valve line center lines its operation to its relay program. Setting calculation lines of 6 position locations higher interference. Inline interference. The moon travels its line center location triangulation of 3 sets lines of 3 center location system. That my equation. All right. Taking that out of position. So everything I do is add frame lines and high set line calculation setting. So you have to understand the more mystical cortex line stream. Center communication your lines, set position locations, high set interference. Travel communication setting. All right. Setting lines of 0 line, operation of center line position location, higher line calculation setting and direct signal. Setting calculation line interference into 2 line rotation position of the panels. The center communication travels out. The line connecting high interference and position locations in set location. All right. Now we got the sun line that locks its signal locations into the same direct location of its moon. All right. Its surfacing locations. Now that line calculates setting line interference. The position location of the moon sets the ground line's operation to the center communication operation high interference in calculation of 3 set location settings and 3 triangulation line settings in 3 set locations. That way equation. All right. Okay. Moon surfacing through cloud channels. Okay, like I said, we have to start early. You know, starting at 10, who knows what time we'll finish in line signal. Setting lines of line graph and 1 line stream. Right? Think of that. 1 line graph line stream. It looks like a 1, looks like a line, right? But it's 1 line graph line stream. Okay. Setting signals lines of panel line operation surface location is center line calculation setting. Directing signals and line interference in line communications and atmosphere lines. Sending calculation of lines of zero operation, center location of ground lines. Calculation of line position location, high interference, right? Cloud line channel operation of closest locations. Now, electric light infusion, rotation surface location, high interference at 3-track line conditions, right? Setting calculation line interference of zero operation, setting ground lines, right? Equal lines of 12, right? Remember the 12 lines, but you got the 12 here and set location left and right. Zero operation grounds of 12 and 12 set location system. So we got 12 lines in the box line rotation surface and a T reception line of communication position of programs. Done by equation, all right? So knowing exactly why you're seeing these things is really to understand how to use, alchemy and fusion center mixing. Yeah, very good, Gypsy. So setting up a colossal line calculation setting is really to understand how to use position track lines in your clouds, how it surfaces location system, galaxy lines, streamlines, high interference, travel communication setting, direct signals of lacing lines, formation line streams, and set locations. Now in direct line centers, we have a galaxy lock line in position location operation locations. This grounds lines its system in the lock line interference operation of surface location system, right? Sending calculations of map sequence line conditions, sending high line position location are measures. Correlating interference, sun comes into the all calculation system into northeast line conditions into its sectors of its wing and set line conditions, setting direct signal. Directing signal line interference sets line communication to ground lines operation to its moon line rotation surface and calculation system and track line. Setting direct line signals, set line condition system in position of gamma lines into radiation cycles. Directing signal lines operation surface locations opens up all levels of channel streamlines and high interference location, high position locations in 144 channel operation. Done by equation. All right, so like I said, there's a lot to be done. Doing things is already done in the line conditions, all levels. It's a force vectors and high calculations. You have a force calculation and a force stream. Now that sets line communications when it comes to all lines of operation to set locations, all right? So getting into track lines, we come into 2-line setting, okay? Operation surface, operation center, operation atmosphere, okay? So we start with our 144 because that's where we are, the ground lines, operation, surface line condition settings, directing signals of panel. All right. Now we set lines of center line communications in a 2 panels operation line setting. Okay, plateaus of communication, right? Center lines of high interference. So the avatar can cross streams and set location setting anytime it wants in set locations. Crossing line settings. Center communications come to the center lines of the mystical cortex streamlines that sets the line communications like a sprinkler to an eye line rotation and position location of its measure. See the eye line? All right. So it sets lines of communication, so surface. Electrical line panels. Now we have a digital box line rotation center in a square unit in set locations. So centers lines its position locations into back force line settings. 2 tablets in all levels. The temporal line and rotation interference of the frontal lobe and communication setting is setting direct signals to set locations. Done by equation. So like I said, it's knowing exactly how to set things up and recalculate, reform. Reanalyze line setting to high position of track line communication to its position, right? It's extremely powerful when we come into those line settings. All right. So we're in 23 line settings and 40 set locations. Tina, Geneva, Gypsy, all levels. Let's go into our calculations of Chris. All right. It's another amazing day, isn't it? Just the beginning, Chris. Exactly. Yes. Fibonacci lines and relays set in flux into mystical waves. So now you understand that set lines, when you are actually sleeping in set position locations, your cloud lines are changing colossal line settings, second per minute, per hour, per channel, per operation. Okay. So those lines send in line condition system. So we take the 0 to 12, we take the 0 to 12. We start with that line conditions, right? Center calculation of 0 lines, center calculation of 12 lines, center calculation of 0 lines, and set location of 12. Center communication into triangulation into box line setting. Okay? Triangulation of lines of flux capacitor center position, operation surface, and set location setting, direct signal. Now at direct line center, we take the line communications into box line, and we take position of triangulation and triangular box lines on top, triangulations on top of locations. All right? Setting calculation line interference. So position of female, position of male, position of female, and position of male set location setting. Directing signal lines of zero operation surface and set location higher calculation setting into line calculation mystical vortex streamline changes line communication setting. Okay? So this is hydroline lines, high line and gamma line interference and set location setting into position location to its cloud channel of a code weaving operation stream locations. That equation. All right. So yeah, I mean, electrical lines in diffusion here. So we got line centers of E lines of M, E line kinetics of C correlates its colossus, line calculations, position of two animals, and rotation surface is location of nature and set location setting. Calculation line and position locations, all levels. Noah's Ark. Okay. Arc line setting, sense in the communication line center, and interference position location, all levels of center position. Now, the reason why I'm getting Noah's Ark here, is that coincidence? No. Nature line resistance, center lines of communication positions of levels. Colossal lines of platitude line rotation interference in position of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and set location of panels. Operational line setting high interference or travel communications. All right? That my equation. So correlation line interference of Joan of Arc and Noah's line interference is equal line its position of balance and set locations in positive. Calculation setting. So that's box equal locations in position of panel. Panel line operation center location triangulations of panel. Male masculine feminating in a position of left. Masculine feminine positions of right. Center communication earth line rotation surface and set lines of travel in communication operation to its sun in communication circles and set locations. Done by equation. Hooah! So platitude line strains. Recognition of time sequentiation of geos, line center interference, measures its correlation panels. The operation line calculation system sets correlation settings to your keyboard line settings. So we come in the alphabetical line setting. A line position of B, balance line communications. Back in sequence location of the atom, E line conditions of positive. Line conditions of positive or negative set location setting. Directing signals lines of collaboration and communication to its valve, line center to its velocity into acceleration line position. Center calculation line interference sets line condition high center interference and flux paths, line condition levels, perception line calculations, and line calculation AI set line condition directions. That my equation. All right. We're going to save that because we're going to come back to that set lines. Now the center communication is going to all set location settings. We're going to go back in line sequence locations in a high interference into star system line stream into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines of 7 positions. Track communication to its settings. Now, directing signals of high interference at all levels of code weaving, a rotation rotor, and line interference is set line communication electrical line connections to panels, sets a communication line string. Now we set lines of high interference. So that's zero line, set lines of zero operations, zero positions, zero grounds, zero surface, zero balance, and zero calculations to its mystical cortex streamline. That by equation. So we could take that line of interference and position of high setting out of equation. Disappearing. Center line and communication lines is colossal line rotation surface and set location setting, directing signals and line connections, right? 3 lines of high interference and travel communications, right? Channel lines of rotation surface in position locations to another line connection line setting. Now, directing line center line interference is set lines of interception location of travels, center calculation line, position location, higher settings, and 3 set locations, all right? Now, gets tricky because now lines of the 2 line is changing the rotation surface location to its infinity 8 line center rotation surface and set location system and direct signal. Directing signals line center lines on operation surface and set location higher levels of calculation streamline. Direction of timeline sets lines of ground lines operation surface and high calculation system of a crop circle location setting at all levels of balance. Done by equation. All set. How are we doing through high signal? I'll go through calculations I'll form. All right, let's see here. Listening today, no, yo. Trinity, how you doing? Yeah, well, that's exactly what it is. I mean, there's a reason why we come into all calculation line settings. It's retracking communication. See? Getting the information line setting, operation service. So taking that out of track lines, now we come into film strip line rotors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 set location, all right? Calculation line and position of your pyramid set line conditions. Line strip center and line condition line setting. inline communications in position. Operation streams and tune line setting. Flux capacitor, flux capacitor, flux capacitor, flux capacitor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 line rotation surface. 1 lines, 0 operation, 0 operation, 0 operation, 0 operation. 8 center line communication setting, inline communication line setting, and scan line rotation surface and set location setting, and ground lines of operation position attraction. Done by equation. All right. See how I set up the 1 line center line interference of routers, the router line calculation system, tracking communication line setting. So we take the 1 line, so 4 line, setting calculation lines of 3, 1, 2, 3. So 3 line center line interference, equal line conditions of 1 is set location system, right? So that's 7 line channels of operation, 7 grounds operation, and 7 atmosphere line conditions. 7, 7, 7 position. Cluster line channels, operation 2 is position. Cluster operation line calculation setting and mystical cortex stream locations. That's my equation. I told you there's a lot to do in set location settings. So we take the travel lines and high center interference. Now the 1 lines and lines of equal lines of 0, equal lines of 8 in set line condition setting. Right? 8 lines of high interference, 8 track communications. Right? So that's infinity line rotation surface. Right? Now understand the 8 lines of center, 8 lines of grounds, and 8 lines of position and position locations. Right? That's how you set up infinity line setting. Now the rotation center line interference sets an add-line strain, a line connecting inline interference into northwest set location system of travel. Travel calculation line, its position location to its energy Hubble and set location setting, direct signals. So setting direct signals line interference sets like 8 channels line interference. We take the 1 line, 0 operation set location setting, equal lines of 58, and set location system of balance. Done by equation. All right. So, getting in a structure is really understand how to get into the analytical line calculations of positions of balance. We have to get into higher calculation streamlines, and interline and rotation position locations put you in a higher levels of correlation in position high setting when it comes into your tracker communication system. All right. Identification, 0 lines, line interference, line conditions of 1, 1, 0, 8. Center lines of triangle line, and line conditions all levels. You set 108 again. Set position of box location setting. Okay. Triangulation sets, box set location system. All right. Now it gets interesting. So we take the 0 line in the 0 operation setting, set line communication at travel position. Okay. I'm just showing you exactly how this is all set up. All right. So that line communication comes in line setting of travel. Okay. It travels line setting, but it opens up a line sequence locations and high interference in set location system, in scan lines and high line rotation surface in set lines of high calculation. Right? That's complicated, right? You come into line calculation system of energy dome in set line conditions. Now this tracks line center. We take the triangulation of center lines of 0, take the box lines of 0 location system. See the intelligence? All right, setting calculation line interference, graph lines, graph. 4 line center line interference, travel communication back line, graph, in position of track line. Done by equation, right? So the energetic dome line center line interference is set up as 0 line, line conditions of 1, 0, 8, lines of 58 lines setting rotation surface, 5 lines of track, 8 line positions, 8 line interference, 0 operation, 1 in track communication, 0, and inline calculation setting and 0 operation surface and set location system. Done by equation. All right. Like I said, there's a lot to do, right? So how are we doing so far? Yes, that's what we're coming into now. Right. Very good, Tipsy. I'm glad you're on position of page line. So we come into the line candidates classification of cyclones. Cyclone line interference of channel line interference and set location system. Box over triangle. Set lines in position of box over triangle. And position of box over triangle. Okay. So we get 3 sector line centers of masculinity, 3 sector line center locations of feminine line rotations. Right. Track lines of 0 line. Set calculations, track lines, all calculations of female line, and 0 operation locations. Setting position of track lines into flux path communication, position of track line communications. Center direct line settings. Line connecting high and line rotation at shield plate location settings. See those shield plates? Now, set lines of communication comes to higher calculation setting into diamond core line setting. The rotation service sets lines of communication and zero lines operation to masculine and feminine as center communication. Now, this splits its anomalies. Okay, this is how we say line interference and balance communications. All right. Now, the track line center lines that open all signals and line interference of its sun to its moon and operation surface location and position. This balances line center line interference of triangulation and position your pyramid line and high interference into its elixir and set location to its cosmic plane and set line condition setting that opens all set location travels and zero operation to new surface of bounce locations. Done by equation. It's very powerful where we're coming into line calculation, right? Holographic dome, setting calculation, earth perception, line setting, stream location system. Remember again the matrix location setting? Well, the energetic ball line sets line communication and fusion. It sets law calculation lines of balance calculation of center lines that operates its surface location at high setting. So in direct signals and set location, we're going to save that. Let's set up a new line set rotation. Now, indicators is an indication in how you get into your connections to your cyclones. Cyclone line center line interference sets position locations. The cyclone this way is a location system. And a cyclone this way is a location system, right? 2 track lines of center line. Triangulation line interference and your pyramid line positions of 4 track locations. Now, directing signals lines is flux capacitor, setting calculating interference and track lines. Code weaving lines, center line and rotations, and position of all levels of cloud channels of operation. Gets complicated. So we got a film strip line stream, 12 line settings and set location system, position location high system. Center line communication line interference, 0 line calculation line interference to crop circle location setting, directing signals to location. See the UFO? Right? Direction of timelines, cloud line channels, operations streamline, colossus long locations, operations surface. Calculation lines, electrical lines, high interference, and position of wall sectors and calculation streamlines of set location system. Travels line center line interference, travel communications. Energy lights, line connecting high center line and position location of travels. Center communications of balance and set location line setting of an energetic dome and set location system. Done by equation. Woo! It's all done. It's all set. Balance frequency line stream. All right. So it's amazing how we correlate line interference of travel communication with set in position location, high center position of balance. Masculine and feminine line interference of nature, line connection of animals, line connection of high position, rotation surface, and set location setting, indirect line interference, and position location of panels, all correlated interference, mystical cortex, vibration centers, panels operation streamlines, operation calculation is all set in position of balance calculation. Multi-pass. All right. All right, so in that line center line interference, we set communication in its positions. All right, we're going to save that through channel. Back in this line calculation is the dome setting. Okay. The dome setting is line connections adding frame lines, operation surface locations in position of 144 and set location setting. Clocking lines and line interference, setting correlation setting in position of bounce, waiting on signal into 644 in clock line rotations. That's my equation. All right. So we come in a triangulation line set. Okay, setting high center interference. Mystical line streamlines and set location system position. All right. You're going to be working with this a lot, so you have to understand how it works in all calculations. So 0 lines and power line generation streamlines of travel communication setting that opens all levels of correlation system and bounce position of track line communication. Now, in that line calculation system, electrical line sets lines of 3 line wires and set locations. See the wires? Setting ground lines of high interference of 6 positions, right? So we got 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6 in line connecting high interference. So the moon line rotation, 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 moon line rotations. Travel calculation line stream, setting correlation line interference. Now the sun comes in line interference. We take the 6 lines, 8 lines of 3, 3 lines equal location of 6, 6 line position locations, 3 lines of center, 3 lines of activation, and 3 lines of provision, and 3 lines of calculation, the streamline, travel line interference location of sun lines operation streamline, in correlation system of panel operation. Done by equation. Now it's done. All right. So really understand how this all works in formation, right? Really get into that set line high calculation system. And I really wanted you to understand how this all works in provision, okay? The center communication you're setting is really how to get into line calculation setting, especially when you come into activation stream. Really get into provision locations, how to use the sun lines and the communication, the moon lines, the colossal communication setting of cyclones interference or anything through intercept location, the lacing lines of frames, inside location setting, and direct signal, and position of balance. All it is masculine femininity of left, masculine femininity of right, and center communication, opening all signal line connection setting, and setting direct signals and all calculation line positions of yin and yang of process positions. Okay? So that's it. Center calculation is done. It's all through operation signal, operation sending line interference, so all calculations formulas equation. So really get into that provision, right? The connection high center interference and track communications. Now, tomorrow line signal, we come into 109. That's an energy line signature lines of waving cycle locations of a wash. The center communication setting is going to set up new parameter line and rotations to your T reception lines of classification channels. Now, again, we're going to use the frame line settings. That's going to go up all levels of provision. That provision location is going to go up your identification operation surface. This is where we come into P calculation settings. Now, the position locations come to the water containment line stream. Setting direct signals into balance the position location of track lines. This opens all calculations and interference. What are we in line communication, line interference? In position 8 and 2, right? So 108 line setting into 2 track locations. Is that coincidence? No, right? So you have to really understand how this works and always informs the set location system. 10 channels of operation of 8 lines of infinity is now a set location system of 2 measure that correlates to system locations when it comes into settings. 2 operation signals and securities of parameters sets a course line channel. Now the course line channel operates its signal, operate the line sending line interference, comes into 10 position locations into 2 track locations. See how it goes from 8, 10, 10 equals 8, 108. See? Communication of computer line relays its program location into its formation locations into its voice grid pattern that opens all signal connections to its provision locations, high interference of telepathy of telekinesis line connection, high setting, and direct signals. All right. So there's a lot to be said to be understood of what's going on through fraction calculation streamline. See? 9. See? 9. See, 9 equals line connection high interference of 0. Calculation line interference equals 109 in set location system. See? Same calculation line interference comes calculation of 10 in set location system. Right? That's what you guys are coming into. Right? Setting calculation line, setting line interference sets one position of 0 equal line connection of 1, 1, taking track lines equal location setting and direct signal. Sending that communication system puts all level calculation system of 110 of calculations. Multi-pass. Okay? So I'm going by calculations of configuration, clock lines of channel lines, stream lines into position of 10 over 2. 10 over 2, time line sequence 43 and 41 line seconds. So in that correlation line setting and seconds positions, that's second lines of channel, that's 43 seconds in 51 minute line setting line interference, 60,000 track line communications. So that's 0 lines, ozone line rotation into our calculations to position. It's 44 channel line streams, that's 40 line setting interference and position locations into 10 inline kineticized setting, inline kineticized system, into 12 position locations and calculation. All right. So it's all about understanding how to use the seconds, minutes, and hours a day location system. Because the thing is, you have 9 seconds. Okay? You have 9 seconds to change your clock lines in position of pi. Okay? In positions of pi. So it's all about understanding to go faster and faster and faster and faster, guys. So the faster you go, the more you create the connection line setting to its dimensional sail, right? And when it creates the dimensional sail, the sun line in communication to the moon line comes in position of balance and center of communication. So levels of travel, in line connecting high interference, and position location high system. Okay? So I think it's very powerful when you really understand how to use the seconds. Okay, 0 location of 9, 9 location of 0. We'll start with that line setting. 0 operation of center and communication, right? 0 operation of communication line setting in travel communication. So line connecting high interference is lines of 3, lines of 3. So you got double helix and set location setting, the high position of track line, communication of 2 panels. Operation lines of high interference and calculation streamlines graphs its line communication to travels in set location and high interference of 12 communications. All right. So I'm just showing you what you can travel through when you go through seconds, minutes, and hours. So 0 lines equals location 9. 9 line communication system equals 0 locations, right? So getting to the bounds of the ground lines of levels in ozone line interference, and so location setting, directed signal locations, ozone line interference, setting alpha line and delta, position of theta, set location system. So you're using 3 track lines, alpha, delta, and theta, right? What is the level at? The sun line comes to your earth line, okay? And what is the ground lines to your crop circle locations, right? Centers and ozone line interference sets line communication, the atmosphere line setting, and rotation surface and location of center. Center calculation interference, travel communication, and 3 set location settings. Directing signals line interference sets an alpha channel communication center, delta center, and theta center communications in 1 set location setting. Directing signal line interference, ozone operation, and to all calculation streamline set location system. Travel lines is 0 line operation line interference. We take the calculation system, changes it to an atom, changes it to a dimension, changes to all calculation setting and teleportation. Done by equations. All right. So I'm showing you exactly how to set up the seconds, minutes, and hours of the day that you have in a 24-line stream. The calculation modification to the line setting is really understand how to set location to a system. All right. So I really want you to how to get into higher levels of calculation streams because you have 9 seconds and a clock line rotations, right? This is your pi calculation of 12 line signatures in position. Okay. So 9 stays in the center, triangulation position locations, all levels. There's your pyramid line calculation system to your diamond core lines of your circles and set location ground lines. Now the operation line center line interference has to have a Merkaba up in position of track line communications. Directing signals has to have a center communications, all levels of rotation. Directing signal has to have an atom line signature line position locations in position. That's how it accelerates lines of center communication. All right. That's what it is every single day is location settings, right? So getting in that direct signal line communication system puts you in higher calculations. So you're always working with 9 set location system, right? Calculation line interference, 12 sets line calculations, right? Then you go into 1 and then 2 and then 3 and then 4 and then 5 and then 6 and then 7 and 8 and set location of 9, right? So every time it goes faster and faster and faster, you're coming into higher calculations of zeros and zeros and zeros and zeros and zeros in calculation setting and direct signal. Okay? So getting everything in one timeline, all sequence locations, into 2 panels in 1 stream. Okay, and set locations. All timelines all at once. Getting that position locations comes in a formation location to infinity line stream. That correlates its system location of balance into the 0 line of communication in a new operation surface and set locations. Okay, so you have to really understand how this surfaces its line settings, right? Because you have 3 seconds to get into 12 signals, right? Getting into 12 signals. So what's 12 and 12? So if the clock goes around twice, what is that? 24. You see how that works? Every time it goes around, right? It's going faster and faster and faster through 24, 48, 72, 144. You have to learn how to coordinate the clock line settings and 9 seconds in position because you have 3 seconds left to set a communications in a 4-line setting. Okay, so the correlation system of your watch, see all those solar graph lines? See the watch, see the 4 lines? Those are pillars, right? See the 4, 1, 2, 3, 4? Those are pillars of light. Those are Starlink line settings, a set location system. Okay, this indicates line calculation streamlines. So every 4 line seconds, sets position location of perimeter into 5 cycle location settings, which is a colossal communication of cyclone interference. That direct signals in set location to the system opens all calculation line interference. So every time it goes faster and faster and faster, what are you creating to higher calculation settings? Higher levels of geometric operation of design through its position of vortex chambers of communications. Okay? So you get a 24-line signature when a clock goes around twice, right? So getting into that position location, what are you going through 4-line settings? 24, 48, 72, and 144. Okay? 4-line provision. Faster, 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 faster. So the more you get into higher levels of 144 clocking, you automatically come into a structured communication of a holographic design of set location. Okay? That's all this is. That's all it is. But you have to understand how to balance out your ground lines and how to get into modification and navigation line settings and set locations, right? But you have to understand how to use your clock lines and ground lines of operation, okay? But I'm just showing you exactly what it is and what you're coming into set locations, okay? It's extremely powerful when you come into indications, right? So I get in that line center line interference, it splits its anomalies and comes into this line settings and set locations. All right. So that's what it is. The faster you go, the more you can actually create what you're creating through your image. Your image is going so fast in space-line anomaly, but the mystical cortex sets the balance of its tone to its center line communication of the cerebral that opens up its dimensional line setting to its position of its locations. Okay, because you have intent, you have will, you have force, you have creation, and you have locations. 5-line setting, part recognition, right there, set locations. All right. Okay, we're done. Center communication line interference. Bring the team back in position location clock lines. Center line interference. Initiate 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, you guys are in position out. Get line calculation interference. Question or comments? Let me know. Adios.